Do not sign a contract with any realtor in Ontario unless they do this first. It is mandatory for all realtors in Ontario to share this document with you before you sign anything so that you know exactly what their obligations are to you as a professional. Okay, let's get into it. My name is Pritesh Parekh, and I lead a Toronto-based real estate team helping buyers and sellers get educated first before making any move. And if you like educational videos like this on the Toronto real estate market, remember to subscribe so you're up to date on new videos that we release. You can also book an appointment with our team by clicking the link below and setting up a 15-minute chat directly with me to talk about what opportunities there are in the market right now for you. Okay, so this document is called the RECO Information Guide. RECO stands for the Real Estate Council of Ontario, and it is now mandatory for all realtors in Ontario to share this guide with you before you sign any contract. This guide has 4 parts. First one is working with a real estate agent and what is involved with that. The second is knowing the risks of representing yourself. The third is signing a contract with a real estate brokerage. The fourth is understanding multiple representation. And finally, how to make a complaint. So the first section here is working with a realtor and what a realtor can do for you, both if you are a seller or if you are a buyer. So it is broken down here in bullet points in 2 columns to show you what an agent can do for you as a seller and do for you as a buyer. Read through each of these bullet points and ask your agent if they are going to provide these services to you, as different agents provide different services and it might not include everything on the list. The next section gets into what the brokerage and the agent owe to you as a client. The 3 main things that are outlined here are disclosure. They must tell you everything that's relevant to the transaction. Confidentiality, as they're dealing with a lot of your information. And finally, avoiding conflicts of interest and at least letting you know before they arise so you could decide how you want to move forward. Now, you also have responsibilities as a client to that professional. So for example, you are expected to communicate with that agent so they understand how to help you. And there are a few other points here that are gone through, such as paying any fees that are agreed to, understanding the terms, and responding to an agent's questions when they have them. The next section talks about the risks that are involved if you are not having an agent represent you. So in the province of Ontario, you are able to buy or sell a property without the use of an agent or a real estate professional. You can do this on your own. However, this section of the RECO Information Guide outlines what the risks are if you are to do something like that. So for example, if you decide not to work with a real estate professional, then you are responsible for making inquiries about zoning, permitted property use, aspect of the property, determining what you believe the value of a property is, whether you're a buyer or a seller, and so on. Always remember, if you are self-representing, then the real estate agent within the transaction does not owe you anything, and therefore they may be working for another party and have someone else's best interests at hand. And the guide goes on to say what an agent cannot do for you if you are self-represented, provide you with any services, opinions, or advice, do anything that would encourage you to rely on their knowledge, skill, or judgment, or encourage you to represent yourself or discourage you from working with another real estate agent. And remember, the last point in this section is that you have the right to change your mind. If you do decide to self-represent and you realize that's not something you're interested in or it's not working out well, you can change your mind and then decide to work with a professional. The next section is about signing a contract with a real estate brokerage. And I encourage you to read through this entire section in a lot of detail, as before you sign, there are different terms and conditions within a contract that a professional may put in there, which you need to review and decide if you're comfortable with those terms. A lot of the terms in a contract are negotiable. For example, the length of the contract term is something that you can discuss with your agent, how long you want to work with them. For example, you may just decide to work with an agent for a matter of 30 days because you know exactly what you need to do and it's going to be a quick transaction. On the other hand, you may be looking for a home in the early stages and you agree to sign a contract for 6 months or 1 year out, so you have lots of time to work together. If you continue down, it talks about that there is no standard set of services that are given from a professional to a client. So it's important to see what services will be provided before you sign the contract so you know what you're getting into. Additionally, the payment terms would be outlined in this contract, whether you are a buyer or seller. If there are any fees that are being charged to you, they would be written in here so you're aware before you move forward. And then there's a section called Understanding Multiple Representation. Multiple representation is a scenario in which one real estate professional represents both the buyer and the seller in the same transaction, or if the same brokerage represents the buyer and the seller in the same transaction. That's a situation in which there could be a potential conflict of interest, and therefore it's a very important situation to understand and for you to be comfortable with and sign off on. An example of how a multiple representation situation might present itself is this. Let's say that you're working with a real estate agent A who is helping you buy a property, and you're looking at lots of different properties in the market. And finally, you find a home that you like, but it just so happens to be listed by the same real estate agent A, either by them or their brokerage. That means that you are interested as a buyer in a property that is listed by the exact same person or brokerage. In this case, you will be represented by that agent, but the seller is also represented by the same agent. So there's a potential of conflict of interest there. If this does happen and you want to move forward, you are well within your rights to do so, and there will be documentation to show that this is the case and that you have signed off. This section goes through in detail more about what that situation means and the fact that it would need to be disclosed. And of course, you can refuse a multiple representation situation if you want, and another course of action would be taken. There is also a section here called a note about content of other offers. So in the province of Ontario, when an offer is on the table, a buyer has offered to a seller and it is put into writing, then there are contents in that offer that may or may not be kept completely confidential. So for example, the price, the closing date, what conditions are involved may be kept confidential and not shared with anybody, but it is also possible that the seller has decided to share the contents of that offer with other potential buyers that have put in an offer. It is up to you as a buyer whether you are comfortable with those terms in your offer being shared or not. And on the flip side, it is up to you as a seller of whether you want to have those terms remain confidential or if you want those to be shared. So remember that this is something that is discussed with you and the realtor and agreed in the contract before you sign anything. The final section in the RICO information guide talks about how to make a complaint if you need to do so. If you are having any challenges with the brokerage that you are working with or the professional, the contact information is provided here, so you have the right resources to reach out to rectify any problem that you have. And at the very end of this document, you will see an acknowledgement section. It is very important to understand that this is an acknowledgement and you are not signing for any contract at this stage. This simply says that you have received this document from your realtor and had a chance to look at it before you move forward. So there are no terms, conditions, fees, relationships outlined in here, except for the fact that a real estate professional has shared this document with you, so you are aware of all of these details before you actually sign any contract. So here you will have the real estate agent name, the brokerage name, the date that the guide was provided, and then the signature of either the buyer or the seller, depending on which side it is, and the name. Now, how will you receive this document? Most likely you're going to receive a digital copy from your professional or their team. It will come to your email directly from RICO, the Real Estate Council of Ontario. So look out for that in your inbox when your professional sends it over. And once you open up the email, there will be a link to open up this document so you can review it yourself. And then there will be also a checkbox for you to say, you've received it. And that is how the acknowledgement works, and it is a digital signature. Once this document is signed, then you can move on forward to working with that realtor and signing any documents that you feel comfortable with now that you understand all the terms and what actually can be involved or not involved in working with a professional in Ontario. If you'd like to see a copy of the RICO information guide, reach out to us and we can send you a copy. And if you have any questions, again, our team is available.